Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AMPM Podcast. My name is Manny Coats, and I will be your host, and this is the show where we discuss all things Amazon private label and how to generate recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM, hence the name of the show. Get it? AMPM Podcast. As a matter of fact, I recently got a chance to view some amazing artwork on display, and while I was checking out these exquisite pieces, I was making money. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the AMPM Podcast. My name is Manny Coats, and I've got an exciting show today. I've got Seth Kniep, right? Did I get that right? Kniep?
You got it right. You said it the German way, the ancient German way.
We were just talking about that. He's got a pretty interesting story. It looks like your ancestors made knives.
That's what they did for a living. So way, way back in old German, way back, like in the medieval times, one of my ancestors made knives for a living. That became their name, their last name, and it was carried on down to today. So I'm pretty proud of that last name.
Awesome. Well, if you guys don't know Seth, he's got a podcast. He's got a really big YouTube channel. And if we go further back, he was a guy that was $24,000 in debt, hated his corporate job, tired of building a business for somebody else, right? You wanted to do your own thing. And then you started this whole thing with a dime and you doubled it. I love the story. You doubled it 20 times, right? So if you do the math, guys, that ends up being $100,000. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I think you started on eBay and then moved on from there and eventually got to private label.
Yep, exactly. So I was one of those people who was trying really hard to make it in the corporate world. I had always at some level worked in some kind of corporate position. And I first was in sales, then later became an account manager for a tech support team. And I hated it. And it wasn't Apple specifically. Apple's an amazing company. It was the corporate environment that was driving me crazy. And one day after I had a really tough meeting, I just felt depressed. I had a spreadsheet to track tasks, and then a spreadsheet to track that sheet, and another one to track that sheet. So it was like tracker inception. And one day I turned to my wife, and she was standing right over here in the office, and I said, because I work from home, and I said, I'm done. Like, we're going to do something different. So we decided we're going to change our life. Like, we were I was angry, Manny, not an unhealthy anger, but like I was angry. I was done. I was sick of living like this. I didn't feel purpose, and I didn't feel the freedom that I felt like I should have. My whole life was tied to my job. So I came up with this concept, and I don't know how it spawned. But if you start with, I studied investing a lot, and so I guess maybe that's where the idea came from. But if you start with just a dime, and if you double that just 20 times, it becomes over $100,000. And I thought, what if I did that? What if I discipline myself and I go out and I'll just start by asking random people. I knew I needed to do something, Manny, to put myself in a place that would, I don't know if humble's the right word, but just bring me down to the earth. Like, I got this really badass fancy job and I'm in debt, right? And sometimes I can't even afford to take my family to dinner because I have 4 kids. So what if I went out and I just started to build a business, and then someday I could tell other people, hey guys, I built a multi-million-dollar business off of a single dime. And so I went out downtown and I started approaching random people, and I would just walk up and I would say, hey, my name is Seth. What's your name? John. Hey, nice to meet you, John. Hey, John, can I ask you a question? Sure. Man, I sound like I'm like a religious cult or something. I'm selling something. But this is how I did it. And I would say, John, what I would love to do someday is to build a business off this dime. And I have this dream of doubling it 20 times. Could you help me double this dime? And a lot of the people would say yes. Some people would think I'm crazy, and some people would say no thanks. So for the people who did, so he would give me a dime, so now I had 2 dimes. Now I know it sounds kind of weird. Here I have 2 dimes. What does that matter? But it was something about the concept. I needed to prove to myself that I could start with almost nothing and turn it into something. So I kept doing this, and I just kept walking around town until I got up to $400. And this was with a hot dog shop right there on the street corner. And this guy, he was taking a risk, so I had 200 at that point, around 200. And so he gave me, at some point, because it was off, I just went to the next 10 to keep it simple. But he gave me 200, so I was now at $400. And I took that $400 and I started researching on eBay. And I was in the sporting goods because I like to work out. I'm very much into fitness. And I thought, if I could do something really well to sell on eBay, and back in that day, Manny, my mindset was find a product. My hope was in the product. The product's going to save me. It's my Messiah. And I talk a lot about Don't put your hope in the products, focus on the keywords. But that's where my mind was. And so I started researching like crazy. I got all the ebooks I could. I checked out all the coaching training programs I could, and I just immersed myself. I would be at my kids' event at school, and while we're waiting for them to come out and sing, I would be reading on my iPad. Like I was just consuming information. And it suddenly hit me as I read, I'm in the wrong category. Yes, sports is great, but everyone's in that category. Why don't we try something as weird as possible? So I went through, if you go into eBay on the left side, you click this button, it'll show you all the categories. And I went through the categories, and I said, what is the most weird, unlikely category anyone would ever sell in? And I found it. It was cemetery. And so I clicked on cemetery, and as weird as it is, I found these urns, these little urns about the size of a quarter, for those of you guys who can't see this on video, and about half an inch thick. And what happens is you put ashes in the urn, and you hang it around your neck like a necklace. And so I started to notice that there were a few sellers selling these like crazy, but not many options. So if you typed in always in my heart cremation urn or cremation urn necklace and so forth, you would get maybe 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 max sellers, and that was it. And I thought, this is it. So I started doing research. Where do I buy them? I found out about DHgate. And I thought, hey, I could use these guys. Alibaba seems really confusing. DHgate is simpler. So I found someone who's selling the same kind of urn. I didn't differentiate at all. I just bought it, and I started selling it on eBay. And the sales were really, really slow. And then one day I thought, I have a lot of stuff in the house that we don't need. Why don't we just get rid of everything we don't need? And my wife, she was like right there with me. Let's do this. I don't care how precious it is to us or sentimental. Let's just get rid of everything. So we literally walked through our house, and we started selling everything. We didn't sell the kids' beds, I promise. There were a few things we didn't sell, but we would sell the PS3, or it might have been a PS2 back then, I forget. This was back in 2014, moving into 15. We just sold everything we could. We sold stuff in the garage. We sold tools. We sold picture frames we didn't need, anything and everything. We started selling Craigslist. People would be coming to our house all the time. We had posted it on Facebook groups, and we just liquidated everything we could. And every time we had money, we'd stick it back in an envelope, bottom right drawer sitting on my desk. We just kept filling it up, kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we started selling them on eBay. It was really slow. I heard about Terapeak, and I started studying that tool that gives you some of the top selling stuff on eBay. And I started finding different items like vaping cigarettes. And I used to smoke a pipe. I studied it. I'm one of the believers that vaping is a great alternative, and there was a lot of debate about that, but who cares? It was a great market. I loved it, and so I started buying vapes, and I started selling those on eBay, and those really took off fast. Built our own website. Started to sell on Amazon. We had if you sat in my office, behind me, you would see almost, at that time it was about 1,200 books. I had a lot of books. And so I just started selling all my books. And some of these books, I love old books, like in the 1800s, and it was really hard to let those go, but I sold them. I thought, okay, here's a book. I don't like my life. I want to change it. I need more cash to do that. So I would sell the books, and they sold well. Then we started driving to Office Depot, Office Max, back when they started to merge. And we would find the printers sitting out there, and we started selling those. And these we were selling on Amazon. So I started learning Amazon just by selling, making mistakes, doing some arbitrage. My wife, she had her own Instagram, clothing store on Instagram. She would go to Goodwill. She would sell stuff. Manny, we were just all about find stuff and sell it, find stuff and sell it. We didn't understand what it means to build a brand. If you said, hey, Seth, how's your PPC going? I would have no idea what you were talking about. I didn't know the importance of keywords. And so it's just our whole life began to shift. We were just hustling to make cash. We're going to make this happen. We're going to get to 100,000 no matter what it takes. The first time a product took off for us on Amazon was when we took those cremation urns and we started to sell them on Amazon. And I was shocked. And for me at this time, this was huge. I started to sell 10 a day. Each of those cremation urns was a decent profit, like $8, $9, sometimes $12 profit, because you can get them for really low. And they would sell for $22, $23. And so I started making really decent money. And I would sit there in a meeting, at work, and I'd have my phone out, and I'd be calculating, okay, if I sell 10 a day, that's this profit. How many days till I get to 1,000, then 2,000? And we're just constantly thinking. Those took off. They started selling like crazy. But then all of a sudden I noticed other ones started to pop up, because we were the very first cremation urn with this particular style. So that's when we thought, we got to do something different. I was searching online. I think it might have been the Startup Bros. I forget who it was, but someone said, if you want to sell on Amazon, you need to differentiate yourself. You need to make your product better. And the best way to do that is go study your competitor critical reviews. Manny, if there's any one thing that helped me make more money on Amazon in the early days than anything else, and it's still a strategy we apply, but this is the one thing I believe that really helped us to succeed. We were at $20,000 a month before we ever did PPC, ever. And I knew about it, but I was afraid of it. I didn't understand it well enough. And that was studying the critical reviews of the competitors. So what I would do is, I'll just use Cremation Urn as an example, but by that time, ours started slowing down. Competition started beating us. I started playing with the price. I tried to do different things, and it just kind of slowly died off, and that product didn't do well. It became a money loss for me over time. But at the same time, we started selling other stuff. But if I take Cremation Urn as an example, I would search Cremation Urn, find all the competitors in the first page, click on it, and I would read their 1, 2, and 3-star reviews. Now today, and for those of you listening, I would highly recommend you don't read the 1-star, because sometimes those are from competitors, or someone had a bad day, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, they tripped over the dog, they're angry, and so they threw up on the keyboard and they took it out in your product. Yeah. Because it shipped in a bent box. Those kind of customers. So, but my philosophy was, if I can find what people don't like about the competitors, I can make my product better. So that's what I did. So I started reading all the critical reviews. I got out a number spreadsheet because I use a Mac. We have to say
it ain't so.
Should the people know that your PC beat my Mac on exporting the Zoom file?
That is a funny story. I know we were racing. Who's got a better system?
It's more like my 5 minutes. You must have like 14 processors on that thing. So I had a spreadsheet, and I would put in all the negative comments. And if I noticed that, let's say 40 times between 10 competitors, everyone said it's too small, then I would say too small, and then in parentheses next to it, I would say 40. And that way I could prioritize the negative comments. I would take those comments, I would contact a supplier, and by this time we started talking to Alibaba, started learning that Skype is the go-to communication tool, that you have to stay up till 2 in the morning to talk to them, and going back and forth trying to negotiate and understand how can I get them to build what I want. And from then we started to find products. One of our best-selling products, which I won't share openly, but we actually found it on Terapeak for eBay. It wasn't selling so well on eBay, but we thought, wait a minute, the same thing happened with the Cremation Urn. What if we had tried this for Amazon? And boom, it took off like crazy, and we still sell that product today, and it just continues to make us money. And each time when another competitor comes up, we'll find a way to differentiate it. We'll add something, we'll bundle, we'll change the color, we'll do a little tweak so we're always ahead. And because we have all those reviews, it gives us more credibility. It's just our idea now is just to keep that going. And then our effort has been to continue to apply that to new products every time we can.
That's very cool. That's a good story.
So we got to 100,000.
Yeah, no, that's nice. And so you started this essentially just over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Our first check, I actually went back the other day because I had to look to remember. Our very first check was early 2015 from Amazon, and it was 14 or 13, I forget, dollars and 79 cents. And I screenshotted that, and I'm putting it on the wall. Because
nice.
My thoughts, Manny, it's something about, and maybe this is just me, but something about the small, starting off, going from nothing to something. And here's what entered my mind, Manny, as soon as I got that check. I thought, if I can do this once, I can do this a million times. Yeah. There's no reason you can't.
So how do you go from, okay, before you were using eBay to find some products, what's your strategy now to find some really interesting, cool products when you're adding? First of all, how many do you add per year or per month? Yeah. And then how do you find them?
Yeah. Our goal is 1 per month. We had 6 that we were going to try to launch in January, and we didn't launch them yet. We're still working on it, and the Chinese New Year hit, so it'll be in March. But our goal is 1 product per month. And that's sort of a challenge to ourselves to keep us going. We now have multiple Amazon stores, and we have business partners, and different people handle different parts of that, but we oversee the whole process. But in order to find a product, in the old days, I would use a software tool and just say, does it have a lot of sales? Does it have low competition? And I don't think that's a bad method. There are people who use it, and it's effective, and it's great. But the one thing that's changed for me, I would say in the last 9 months, is I want to find the keywords. In other words, let's say I'm going to sell in the pet category, and we do. And I go to a tool like Merchant Words or the one you mentioned, which I need to familiar. Can you? What was
Cerebro.
It? Cerebro. Okay. Uh-huh. I will, and I mean that. I will take it out.
It's fine. It's fine.
And I go there and I type in pet, just simple pet. So it's a super broad category. I know that there are tons of subcategories underneath that. What comes up as a result is going to give me ideas. Now, as a general rule of thumb, if it's a global search engine, I'll use 15,000 monthly search volume for a long tail keyword as sort of a first gate to get in. Okay, that's pretty legit. Mm-hmm. And let's say the result is a pet. Let's say it's a hair removal pet brush. So there's our long tail keyword. Then I'll take that keyword and I'll drop it into JAWD Toolbox Autocomplete or Keyword Tool Dominator and see how it's ranking. If its ranking is anywhere from 1 to 5, because both of those rank 1 to 10, 1 being the best, kind of like BSR. If it ranks 1 to 5, I'll say, okay, that tells me it's strong ranking for autocomplete. A lot of people are searching for it in Amazon. So it passed test number 2. Then I will drop it into Amazal or a similar tool. I'll do a quick search with Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout isn't my favorite tool. I like Jungle Scout because it's quick, but I like Amazal because it's in-depth. And Amazal is one of my favorite. I'll drop it into Amazal, and I have no direct affiliation with them at all. We're not like business partners, but I do use them a lot. I'll drop into Amazal, and I'll look at the daily sales. If the daily sales for that keyword are going to be at least 10 to 15 a day for one or more of the top competitors, that's a good sign. And if those top competitors are no more than 20, so that if someone was to search the keyword on that first page of search results, there's usually about 20, I want to know I can get on that first page. So if there's under 20, that's a strong indication that I can also do it as well. But that's just the beginning. The other thing I want to know is if there are anywhere from 3 to 20 competitors, is the daily revenue at least 1,200 total, but usually it needs to be more than that. And second, on the reviews, if the top competitor has at least under 1,000 reviews, that's also a strong indicator. Or another way I look at it is the median review 500, that's good. If the median, not the average, but the middle one, is 200 or below, that's really good. And so those are also strategies I'm looking at. There's others. We'll look at Google Trends. We'll use the price history similar to Keepa to find out what is the stability of it. We might drop it into Market Intelligence, which is a very new tool, to me at least, that I've started to learn about, which is pretty awesome, I hear. But if I drop it in and see that the price history is strong, then that also tells me that this is a stable market. I'll do that for one keyword. If that keyword pans out, then I need to find at least 4 more. And if those 4 other keywords are all pointing to the same, let's just say this was the same glass cup, then now I believe I have a winner. Because the way I look at it, my favorite illustration, I live in Austin. Every year, 20 million people move to the city. I mean, visit the city, not move to the city. And there's about 5 freeways that come into Austin. If I'm depending on the 35 to get in and 35 shuts down, I'm going to use the 183 or I'm going to use the 1 Mopac. If I'm just trusting in one keyword, and a lot of people's minds, and this is how I was, it was synonymous with the product. Like keyword, product, same thing. So it's really just the product. I just need that product. But if I'm trusting on one keyword and that freeway shuts down, I just lost all my traffic. So I need multiple keywords in order to create what I call a cluster. And that cluster is all these keywords pointing to the same product, kind of like a bunch of freeways all pointing to the same city. And if that matches out, then I know I'm ready to launch that product.
Interesting. So you mentioned 9 tools. I got to get you on Helium 10, man, because it does all of those. I think almost every single one you mentioned. We'll have to jump on a call where I show you this stuff because it's awesome. So
I would love to.
So you're not jumping around everywhere and everything talks to itself. This tool talks to this tool.
Totally agree with you. There's so many tools out there that people they'll have Feedback 5 or Feedback Genius and then JumpSend and Jungle Scout and Amazal. Yeah. It's crazy. Where do you stop? And then people get confused with it. But just for the convenience of having all one place, absolutely, man.
So you're talking about how you're taking a product or a product idea and you're validating it and you're deciding, okay, I'm going to jump into it. Before, let's say you figure out, okay, this is the product that I want to get, right? What would be some techniques that you're going to be using to find the supplier now for these actual products?
Yeah. We went to China. I was going back and forth in Alibaba, talking with Chinese suppliers. We developed some good relationships for several. We also do some clothing. My wife and I, we have a clothing brand on Amazon. And this is before we ever went to China. And one day I thought, why don't we just go to China, talk to the suppliers directly, learn everything we can, because I could still tell they're missing connections. Mm-hmm. And people that I work with, they're like, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I keep running into that. Why is that? So we actually flew to China last October. We were there for 10 days, and all we did was talk to factories and suppliers. And we actually hired a liaison who has been working for a trading company for years now, who's now part of our team to help us understand. And from day one, when I sat down with her, it was kind of cool. I said, look, and I mean this in all respect. I said, this is exactly what I told her. I said, I mean this in all respect. I need you to be 100% honest with me from the beginning. Look, I'm the kind of person I like everything laid out in front. Let's just go with it. If it's bad news, tell me. And she really liked that. Turns out she ended up becoming part of our team. And so she's been able to help us so much with our understanding of that Chinese culture and bridge those gaps. I knew how to work with the supplier, but there were reasons like, why is it that way? I didn't understand. And I feel like we have a better understanding. So again, to answer your question, so the first thing I'll do if I'm using Alibaba and it's not a supplier that I've been working on or working with for a while, I will go and I will filter it out. There are 3 levels of assessed suppliers in Alibaba. And some people, they look at Alibaba as if, it is the supplier. And it's like a advanced phone book business networking platform. And I'll filter it out. Never AV, assessed, verified. That just means they got a business license checked and they verified that they have a contact person, and that's it. And anyone can do that. Plus, they have to pay no money to get that level. So I will go to the second or the third level. The third level is assessed supplier, which means they actually had someone visit their facility or their factory by a third-party company. All this data they had to go through. And to do that, they had to become gold. And to become gold, they have to spend a minimum of around 2,300, somewhere in that range, up to 6,000 based on how they want to rank. So if I filter it by assessed, by gold, and I also wanted to make sure the gold's 2 years or more, just to make sure it wasn't a one-time thing so they could scam as many people as possible because they have to keep paying those fees annually, then I know I'm in a pretty good space. Mm-hmm. The second thing I'll do is when I search the product, and I'll use this as an example again, the glass cup. If I use a glass cup as an example and I search for it and it has this, cool design right here, let's give it a design. I'll call it a diamond design. And I notice that there's, 400 suppliers and they're all selling it. I'm not interested unless my differentiation is so immaculate that there's no way someone else could come onto Alibaba and find it easily. In other words, I want to differentiate myself from my competitors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a molding company, and that molding company is not interested in being a supplier. They have no interest in selling on Amazon. That's all they do is make molds. So I'll find a molding company, get them to make the mold for me, and then work with them directly, completely cut out the whole supplier, Alibaba factory thing out of the picture. Gives me a huge advantage. By the time someone else figures out how to build the same product, this is not a great example because it's a glass dish, but I'm thinking of something more complicated, like let's go back to cremation urns. Maybe a creation urn with a special class that easily comes off, something like that, because most of them you have to do it from here, not from here. Then what that does is it allows me to differentiate myself from the supplier. Okay. The second thing is I need to build a relationship with them. And I know this is going to sound super simple, but it's so true. We've run into this so many times, man. If we are friends with them, I fly to China and I take them to dinner. I spend time. They're going to give me better deals. I'm actually learning Mandarin. I don't know much now. There's a phrase. I'm not going to say it because all your Chinese listeners are going to go, "Sap."
It's so easy to mess it up. You enunciate a little bit different, and the word is totally different.
Man, it's unbelievable. There are thousands of symbols, and one symbol means different words based on how you write it or say it. Yeah. Anyways, there's a phrase that basically says good business is friendship. And really, truly friendship. So if I develop a good relationship with them, the opportunities they're going to bring me are exponential. I will get better deals. They will give me preferential treatment over other people who some sellers are complete jerks to suppliers. They've told me stories where they'll walk into the room and say, "How come you didn't make this work?" "Well, the shipper, they dropped the ball." "Oh, it's your fault." And just treat them as if, they were dirt or something. And of course, what's that going to do? They're not going to do business with them, or they're not going to give them a great deal. So building that relationship is huge.
Yeah, I see that a lot with, especially with Westerners, people in the United States, just really to the point, direct, just rough. And I tell them, I'm like, I know you're communicating on Skype and you don't know this person, but get to know them, ask them, find out, first of all, do you know if your supplier, the person you're dealing with, Jade or whatever the name is of the person that you're talking to, is she married? Does she have kids? What city does she live in? Ask her when you first start, how has your day been going? What'd you have for breakfast? I just send pictures. I was doing that with my team at a lot of these factories. I'll just send them cute pictures of what we're doing and stuff, and they'll send back stuff of them in the office. And it's really cool. We feel like we've known each other, even though maybe we haven't gone the step that you've gone, which is to go out there and hang out. And when you do that, and you actually do fly out there and you're having cocktails or dinner or whatever, it's just massive. It really does make a big difference. I want to go back a little bit. You said, you'll find somebody to do a mold, and that'll definitely differentiate yourself. A lot of people are probably asking, well, where does he go to actually find a company that does molds? I know nothing about molds. Where do you go, and what does something like that cost?
Yeah. You just Google it. If you just Google molds in China, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of companies in China that are mold making companies. Cost can be anywhere from $2,000. I've seen $10,000. It depends on the mold. Like if it's a plastic mold or if it's a silicone style mold, it depends on how complicated it is. One technique we used in the past, because we would launch a product on Amazon, and then within a few months, someone else has the same product, and we built it, we paid for the mold, we did everything. We're thinking, what's going on? And one of my friends says, hey, Seth, have you searched your product on Alibaba? So you go to Alibaba and you search it, and there it is. Like, oh, thank you guys for taking, I spent, $3,000, $4,000, and now you're making that available to all these other Amazon sellers. And that's the thing is, now we're dealing with a trading company or a factory that doesn't do the mold. Most of the guys in Alibaba don't do the mold. They're buying it from another factory, and then they get it. So now they can market that mold to other Amazon sellers and even use it to sell on Amazon as well. If you go to Google Trends and type in Amazon FBA, I haven't checked it for probably a month, but the last time I checked, China came up first. Like there's a lot of Amazon sellers in China now who are doing this. So what I do is I go to the molding company that makes the mold without ever dealing with the supplier at all, and it gives me a huge advantage. So just Googling it, you'll find it. And then, yeah, the cost can be anywhere $2,000, $10,000. Another big question that comes up is, well, how do you design it? Well, you go on to Fiverr, you go onto Upwork, you find a designer who can actually give you all the technical drawings for it, and you send that in. Then they're going to send it back and say, oh, well, you need this curvature to be this, and this needs to be this, and otherwise it won't work, or it'll be too break, or it's too much stress point. You just work with them. It's a process. It's long. And I know there's a lot of people, at least in our community and circles, who are new to this, and they're thinking, man, this is harder than I thought. I thought I would just, buy the product, put on a label, send it in, and I make money. But you're building a business.
Yeah.
And long term, man, you make the investments ahead of time. You do the time investment. You bust your ass to do the work ahead of time. In the future, it's so hard for people to catch you. And I would say this, Manny, there was one of the coaches in our team. When he first launched his product, he had 1 5-star review. And a lot of people say, man, that's not enough. You need, 25 minimum. I used to teach that. I used to teach you need at least 25 5-star reviews because that was my understanding. 1 5-star, man. He sold over 40 products his first day. 40, over 40. It was like 44 or something. And then it just picked up from there. How did he do it? It was so well differentiated that when you see that picture, you immediately can tell, oh my goodness, of course I'm going to buy that. Because the picture shows the value higher and the price is just a little bit under the most expensive competitor. And when you combine those two things into one, it's unbelievable. But doing that takes so much work and research, and that's the hard part. But then when it starts to come in, then it's a matter of, okay, let's repeat the process. Then you want to start breaking into a different category and try something new.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. If you can differentiate, if you can have something that you do a search for a specific keyword, and if your product's on that page, and we talked about this in the last show that we did, but if you can be something that stands out, like just it's night and day, right? Your pricing is on point, your image is amazing, and then you've got all your keywords in there so people can actually find your product, see your thumbnail in the first place, then you've got it made. And we were just talking about, number of reviews that you need. You don't need a lot. Most of the stuff that I've started recently have had 2 or 3 reviews. They've been 5-star reviews. And I throw a video in there. I get a video review just to kind of spice things up. So when people go there, there's something other than just some written reviews, and you're good to go. The molding's awesome. How long does it take to do a mold typically when you're doing these things? What's the process there?
It depends. It can take anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks to 12 weeks. It depends on how complicated that mold is. Do you
ever get the mold back or anything like that?
What's that?
Do you ever grab, I know somebody I talked to, they're like, when he actually does very, very large volumes, multiple containers full at a time. They'll go out there almost to supervise to make sure everything's good. And if the products are bad, he actually destroys them right there on premise. He doesn't want them to somehow stick them back in. That's how anal he is about stuff. And then when he leaves, he takes the mold Like he does not leave it there because he's like, no, these guys will take the mold and they'll print the stuff. They'll create the stuff for another company. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another level, but the company, very, very big company.
Like, destroy it. I don't want somebody to copy this.
Yeah, no, it's like, this is defective. Boom, destroyed. Next, and people like freak out. Like he's just crushing them all. They're like, why are you doing that? It's like, because I don't want this thing to go back into production. Like you guys will try to fix this, and that's not what I want. I want a new one.
And to protect it, yeah. You said something that caught my attention. You mentioned the photos and how people buy with their eyes. Something that's helped us a lot as well is if we have a product, instead of paying a photographer to take pictures, and I'm not against that. In fact, in the old days, Manny, I would get a whiteboard from Walmart, I would get lighting, and I would take a picture against the whiteboard with an iPod. It was terrible, but it worked. We actually succeeded doing that, but it was a great learning process. Then we moved up to a better camera. Then we paid a professional photographer. Now what we do is we use a 3D renderer. So for example, let's say, I have a product. I need a better product on my desk here. How about this cord? And I send in about 6 to 7 angles, pictures of this product to a 3D renderer. All they have to do, and most of the expense comes up front, is create a 3D model of it, one model. Once they've done that, and that's 80% of the time and the cost, then they can do multiple photos from different angles. Then we can go to Shutterstock or somewhere else, buy a lifestyle photo, have them insert it in there, and it doesn't look photoshopped. You see some of those pictures, it's like it's floating and you can see the little white outline. You're like, that's really bad. People like the standards of photography are so high today in imagery, it has to be excellent. If the 3D render is good, I will pay double, triple, because I know that is going to cause the product to convert because people buy with their eyes. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, people don't like to read. You go on your phone, you're on Facebook. What are the things that I want to watch? The videos, the interesting ones. This guy, he's skydiving, or someone's, in a canoe going down rapids, or someone has a really cool photo. Yeah. That's how I want to think about my product. And the other thing we'll do too is we'll go back and I'll ask myself this question. If I search and it comes up, what are the chances that I would buy that? Then I'll go get a bunch of people and ask them the same thing. And if everyone's not saying absolutely this one, they don't know it's mine, then I need to do something to change. Well, what would you change? And I need to keep doing that until there's it's like 99% risk proof. It probably isn't, but at least in my mind it is, that this is going to take off because someone's tested it based on what they see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you guys, I've talked about this before. You guys can use PickFu, which is cheap, $25, $30. And in advance, you can just submit multiple images, guys, and you can see what people like better. And then you can take the best ones and then run them on Amazon and split test them. You always got to be split testing. Don't ever just be happy. Even if you're selling 30 units a day, you know what? I know it's some people sometimes get nervous, like, oh, I don't want to change anything. But if you tweak something, if you use PickFu, for example, and you take your best image that's selling really well, and then you come up with a new one, you do a 3D render, let's say, and you're like, man, this looks really good, but I'm afraid of messing with my image. Run it through PickFu, which is just a service where you have a lot of people that will tell you which one they like better based on the criteria you give them. And if you see 90% of them like this went better, swap it out, run it for a week and see what happens. You might be surprised. You might be like, holy crap, my sales have doubled. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do there. What's it cost to do a 3D render? Not a cheap one, like a good one.
Yeah. The lowest I've seen is around 300. Okay. The highest I've seen would be 900. Now the 300 would include others, because once you do they create the model, that's probably 250 of the cost. Then you can say, okay, I want 6 pictures off of the model. So they have the model on that computer and they take a picture here. I mean, I don't know exactly how they do it, but it's as if they were taking pictures of a physical model, but it's, 3D rendered. So
that was one of my first businesses was 3D animation. Yeah. So you have a virtual space and you can move it around and render it from there. So that's cool. Yeah. So 3D renders, that's pretty cool. You can do your own molding. You have a really interesting story with how you started this whole thing. I love the whole thing, just starting with one dime, right? And then flipping that thing, multiplying it, doubling it 20 times to get to 100K. And where were your sales last year? I'm curious where you're at.
I'll put it this way. We had enough to buy Tesla. We make enough now that I make more in 1 week than I made in 6 months at Apple.
Nice. All right. So you're happy.
I'm happy.
You're working out, you're fit, you've got your lifestyle. So that's cool.
And you know what's been really cool about this business, Manny, is the longer you're in it, and I know you know this really well, the more people you meet.
Yeah. And
because we have a podcast that gives us probably an unfair advantage where we get to meet a lot of people, and learn from them, and then we'll partner up. So that way we can have multiple things going at the same time with various people. Like this one guy, he's really, really good at this part, or she's really good at this part. We'll learn from each other. Okay, you take that part, I'll take this part. And then that ends up making us a lot more money as a result.
Right. I agree. And if people want to check out your YouTube channel, what is that called? Where do they go?
Yeah, if you go to youtube.com and you just type in Just One Dime, which is probably easier than typing in Seth Kniep, because how do you spell that? Just type in Just One Dime. It will pop up. It'll be the first thing.
Cool. And you've got your summit, Just One Dime. It's going to be in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock. What are the dates? So if people want to go to this, where do they go? What time?
Yep. Super excited about this, you guys. So we're going to have over 20 workshops. It's March 11 to 13. It's in Las Vegas. The weather there is beautiful. Obviously, Manny's going to be there.
I'm going to be there, guys. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier on, but I'm going to be one of the speakers. So, and you've got a social going on. So it's going to be cool. We can all hang out. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. We have an opening party night with a DJ. You know, I think the biggest thing in conferences is not even just what we learn from listening, but the first Amazon conference I ever went to resulted in me going to dinner with people who were really good at what they did and open up opportunities for an entire country. And I could go into detail in another time, but like that just blew my mind. Like I would pay tons of money to go to something like that. And this conference is going to be like that. We have a mixture of people who are investors and people who are sellers. Investors saying, look, I don't have the time, but I have the money. You're trying to start a business. You want to do this. You have the knowledge. Why don't we use my money and your time and become business partner? And a lot of people have done that in the Just One Dime community, and we encourage it. So that way you're using strengths and weaknesses instead of going solo and trying to do this by yourself. Manny, I did that for the longest time. That's why I didn't touch PPC for the longest time. That's why all I did was I just focused on hustling. And maybe we got through because, actually, now that I think about it, I think it was Starter Bros who taught me about studying critical reviews. That was one of the keys. Now, if I had done that 10 times as much, looking back, we would have done even much better than we do now. So I cannot underestimate, you guys, the value of networking with other people who are doing it, who are in the trenches, who are learning it from their own mistakes and then sharing with you what to do, what not to do.
How many people are going to be coming to your event, roughly?
We're looking at over 300. Right now, we are really, we're at 300. No, it's well over 300. It's 328, I think. So probably max 400, minimum 300, somewhere in that range.
Cool. So guys, it's a month away. I'd encourage you guys to go. I can't agree I agree 100% and I can't disagree with them. You have to go out there. You got to network. In this business, it's almost something you just need to do it. You're going to find that one nugget. You're going to meet that one person. You're going to learn that strategy on stage that you're just like the aha moment. Like, oh my God, I haven't been doing that. My girlfriend who's now selling on Amazon has this at least twice a week. I'll just assume that she's doing something. I'm like, why aren't you doing this? She's like, you can do that? And I'm like, oh my God, you're not doing that. So it's like, that's the kind of things that will happen at these events. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be speaking. I'm looking forward to meeting all the speakers there, hanging out with Seth, hopefully a bunch of you guys. If people want to join, or if they want to register and go to this, you said you had something special for them, right? A small discount at least.
Absolutely. So you guys know Manny. So if you type in his name at the checkout box, it'll give you a 10% discount off the ticket price. Here's where you go. justonedime.com/summit, SUMMIT, justonedime.com/summit. Go to the tickets and then type in Manny at the discount box, in the discount code box, and it'll give you 10% off. And if you want to bring your husband or your wife or your business partner, there's a huge reduced fee as well for that, so you can get in.
Awesome. Well, guys, there you have it. Join us, join Seth, join myself. We hope to see you there. This has been awesome. I hope to have you back on the show. We can talk about the next strategy, keywords. We're big into that kind of stuff. I'm going to get you on Helium 10 so you can stop jumping around everywhere. So guys, Seth Kniep, he's an awesome dude, got a big channel. Follow him, get on there, subscribe to his channel, and keep on crushing it. Thanks for being on the show, Seth.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Manny. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in a few weeks.
Yes, in Vegas. And hopefully you guys too. Take care, everybody.
Make sure you slam the subscribe button. Give that video a thumbs up and share it. One final thing, if you want the most badassical Chrome extension for Amazon sellers, download the Helium 10 Chrome extension for free at helium10.com. The link is also in the description. What other topics would you like us to cover? Write them below in the comments.
You've been listening to the AMPM Podcast, hosted by Manny Coats. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.